being willing to be vulnerable. Now you got to find the right people to do this with, right? You don't just go up to a stranger, but finding people, having some friends that, they can be business friends, they can be financial friends, or they can just be good people, but they can be, it could be an informal group of, like, call it like your five. Like who are the people that really know you well, let's put it this way. If you were going to go on a mission trip to Africa, and you need to leave your financial wherewithal with somebody you trust, do you have that person? Do you have two people you could trust to actually turn over your finances, give them a limited power of attorney? Something happened to you and that they take. Do you have those people in your life? See, if you don't, then you need to dig a little deeper.
All right, guys, here we go now. It is time to unlock more doors to deals. We're real estate investors here. We're real estate agents here, and we all have one thing in common. We believe that we can. We can live the life of our purpose. We can create financial freedom. We can build a better life for those that we love, and we can live the life of our dreams. I don't care if you're trying to do your first deal or your 500th this year. You can get to the next level, and we're here to help. All right, guys. So today is another episode of Doors to Deals. I am your host and founder, Jim Manning, and I am beyond thrilled to announce that we have Dr. David Phelps on the line. Dr. Phelps just got done writing a book called Own Your Freedom, and it was co-written with Dan Kennedy. For those of you that recognize that name, he's a very accomplished, very well-known author, and in the marketing space has a lot of really good quality books on marketing for you guys to read. So anyway, this episode's really good. Dr. Phelps shares some of his ups and his downs from his life and his career as first a dentist and then a very successful real estate investor. So this episode's really good, guys. I'm excited to bring it to you. Before we get going, just a quick little reminder, one of the best resources that we have available for people to become financially free can be found by just sending us an email. Send us an email to deals@3doors.com and just about our passive investment opportunities that we have available. We help generate about $130,000 a month in passive income, and our goal is to continue to raise that till we help 250 people become financially free investing in real estate. So then the last thing for us to kind of go over is our iTunes review of the week.
This week's review comes to us from Rip Eddie VH, titled Entertaining and Excellent Advice. 5 stars. Eddie VH writes, as a 29-year practitioner of real estate sales, I can't say enough about Jim and Ryan's organization, 3 Doors. Truly, it's a privilege to have access to such innovative and tested investment systems and strategies. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate what you're presenting and your positive can-do mindset. Keep it up, and we will all keep listening and growing together. Eddie, thank you for your review. Jim, back to you.
All right, guys, let's get going on the interview. It's time to roll. Hey, what's going on, guys? Jim and Ryan here with another Doors to Deals podcast episode. And today I am really excited for the guests that we have. So we have Dr. David Phelps. He has a group called Freedom Founders, and he has a new book out called Own Your Freedom that I've been kind of devouring lately. I'm through the first 3-4 chapters already. It's really good, guys, about financial freedom and some of the headspace, some of the mindset items that you need to have. So I'm really excited. I've been looking at some of your stuff now for a couple of years, and you're really well known in the space, and you've done a lot of great things for people. So welcome.
Jim and Ryan, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this conversation since we talked about it some time ago. And we all three have a lot in common. Certainly, we love real estate and what we know that can do for people and from a financial standpoint. But I know what's in your hearts, and what happens is, as we go through the trials and tribulations of finding some levels of success, and it's never a straight shot. We all know that, right? It's never a straight shot. You've got to test, and reiterate and take a step back before you take another one forward. But finding people who have gone ahead of us, I mean, in some form or fashion, that's the fastest track in life. And that's what we're doing today. I think just sharing, our stories and not all the wins, because wins are great. But what didn't work, and what did we learn from the things that didn't work, right? Because that's what gets people back up again. Goes, it's okay. I didn't make it the first time out. I can still do this.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. Yeah.
No, love it. Love it. Jim, just to kind of elaborate on what Jim had said, he might be a super fan of yours. So I'm just going to throw that out.
Do I need to send him the t-shirt? Do I need to get that out in the mail today?
Well, if you got a t-shirt, he'll wear it.
Yeah, I've done the whole thing where like I bought like one of your courses just to like look at what you're doing and like study it and learn from you. So I feel like even though we haven't had in-depth conversations, I've definitely kind of feel like you've mentored us a little bit, even if it was passively, so to speak. But,
yeah, right.
So
real quick, I was sorry to interrupt you. I was going to hop in. Just tell us a little bit about your history so people can get it. So if they haven't read your book, they can get a little bit of who is Dr. David Phelps.
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, yes, I am a dentist. I'm still licensed. I tell people I'm still licensed. I still conceal carry. So I'm not dangerous unless you make me pull those instruments out, so people can relax a little bit, right? But I actually was a real estate investor before I became a dentist. And people say, well, why would you do that? I mean, real estate's, it's great, right? I mean, there's people that are crushing it out there today and making all kinds of money. And why would you start with real estate investing? I mean, was there something wrong with it? I mean, did you need a plan B? Actually, I was always already trekking down the road to become a dentist, but when I thought back, this is years later, when I thought back about my early life, and I'm sure you guys and many people that are listening to this will have some resonance with this, but I realized that early in my life, even though I grew up in a family where our needs were met, good parents, but they didn't give us, extra stuff. If we wanted something better, like a better bike, or I played tennis, better tennis shoes or a better tennis racket, or here's the thing I wanted. I really want some independence, right? Not independence where I was going to go out on my own at age 13. No, I still needed the family roof over my head. But we had like one family room with one TV, right? And so that meant you had to watch what the family was watching. Well, I was wanting to assert some independence, so I wanted my own TV. Now, back in the day, all I could afford was like from Kmart. Is Kmart still around? I like Kmart, like Sears. I think we're seeing the dissolve of some of those mainstays. But at Kmart, I could buy a portable black and white. No remote back then. I'm talking about, we're going back into the early 70s. So way before you guys were born. Yeah, you guys not lived unless you have to have a TV with 3 channels and you have a knob to turn. Okay. And this is black and white. So, but I was so thrilled when I got to have that TV because I had some freedom, some independence. Let's put it that way. Not that my family was keeping me hostage, but I think we all have a sense in our own hearts, and that's why people are here. That's why people love real estate, what you guys are doing, what you're showing them how, because there is a aspect of financial freedom. I think real estate provides one of the best ways to get there. Now, there's other ways, for sure. So anyway, so I'm giving that background because people say, well, then why did you go into dentistry? Well, my dad was a doctor, physician, eye surgeon. And so I was around that. And so, if you could make the grades in school, which basically means you take it in and you regurgitate, you spit it back out. I mean, that's what school is, unfortunately. But if you could do that at some level, then people would anoint you and say, well, you could be, Johnny or David, you could be, you should be a doctor or a lawyer, an engineer, rocket scientist. They would kind of anoint you, whatever. And some people had like athletic skills, that I didn't have. So they would say, you get to be the NBA rocket. But anyway, people were like anointing us, right? And kind of telling you, this is your path. So I thought, well, then I need to go do that. So I was in college and I was, prepping and taking the courses to get into dental school and taking the entrance exams. And I'm getting through my studies in school, but I'm also reading some books on how to be an investor. Money I didn't have. I didn't have any money to invest. I was like just waiting tables to get through school just to try to keep the debt down, right? But I thought, someday I'm going to have money to invest. And I need to figure out, how to do that. So I'm a long game. I'm a planner. If you haven't figured that out, I'm always thinking way down the road, even though, the first school of thought for me was to get into dental school. But I read books on like the stock market. This is back in the 70s, guys, because there was no internet. Just to let you know that we had no internet. We had no smartphones. You had to actually go to a library. We have these things called library cards. It's like a driver's license. Yeah. You actually get a card that gives you access to the library to actually check books out. That's the way we had to do it back in the day. Or you could go to a bookstore and you could buy books. But we didn't even have the big bookstores like we used to have. Like there's still Barnes and Noble around. But they were small little like Walden's. That was the name back in the day. But you go in there and they'd have their group of books. And I bought some books on like stock market, mutual funds, kind of read about that stuff. And, that sounded sexy, but then I found books on real estate, and I happen to have the one that triggered me in a positive way was by William Nickerson. Nickerson was probably one of the first, if you want to call it a real estate guru. He was probably at least in this genre, in this last two generations, William Nickerson was the guy. Now, he's long gone, but this book was written in 1959. I'm reading it in the 70s. There are several iterations of it. But when I read that book about real estate, a tangible asset, and of course, if you read that book today, the fundamentals are still the same. I mean, no, how we market, lead generate, and wholesaling, that stuff. I mean, that's not in the book, but I mean, the actual fundamentals of why real estate is a solid investment asset class, it's all in that book. And so from a logical brain, a left brain thinker like I typically am, is that just made sense in the stock market. It's like, I can't make sense out of this stuff. I wanted something tangible. So I'm getting ready to go to dental school, and I'm looking for apartments. Back in this is 1979, but I'm thinking, I read this book. I'm going, Dad. I'm thinking of my dad who lived in a couple states away. I said, I'm getting ready to go to school for another 4 years, and looks like I'd be paying rent again. So what if we, keyword being we, what if we bought a house? Because I had no credit, I had no money, and so fortunately my dad was okay. Now I'll just speed the story up. We spent some time figuring it out. Location was the best thing we did. Right house, worst house in good neighborhood. So if and of course you have to get the financing right, but houses back then were relatively cheap. The problem was, guys, this is 1980. You guys know, you probably do, but
Yeah.
you know what interest rates were back in like 1980, 81, 82?
16%.
Yeah. So people today are like going, I got a quote the other day, and I could get money at 3%. Am I paying too much? I just want to go, oh my gosh, you just hit a home run if you can get a cash flowing asset with 3% long-term financing. So anyway, ours was actually at 13.5, but prime rate got all the way up to like 21. But mortgages on houses, investor, that was 13.5. So my dad got that financing for us. I managed the property while I was in school. I only had 2 tenants during 4 years. Now, this was a good property, so it attracted good tenants. I didn't have like the turnover you'd have in like Class C properties. So this was probably like a Class A minus property. Not bad. We paid $83,500 back in 1980 for this property. It's a nice 2-story. It was an estate sale. Lady had lived there for 30 years as a widower, and it never updated. So it just needed cosmetics, no structural. So I managed it, 2 tenants. Really didn't make anything on the cash flow, but that's okay because my dad didn't need the cash flow. I could have used some, but the big thing is the capital gain profit. The profit from that asset on the back end, when we sold it 4 years later, we split about $50,000, and we just did a 50-50. My dad took 50, I took 25, I took 25, and I took my 25 and went on and parlayed it into more properties. But here's the epiphany. As I said, I waited tables all the way through college and dental school because it was a great way to make money, to have extra money, or pay rent and that kind of things, and it gave me flexibility. But when I looked at the time that I put into, with my dad and with a realtor, finding that property. So there's time, obviously, in finding a deal, right? You guys teach that all the time. So how do you find it? And then somebody's got to be able to negotiate and close the deal, right? Make a good deal on terms or cash deal or whatever it is. Someone's got to fund it. That was my dad, my joint venture partner. So he brought the funding. But then the key thing people forget about is like, somebody's got to manage this thing. I mean, if you're going to make something from A to B and either get a profit or have a long-term cash flow, well, someone's got to be good at managing it. Now, that doesn't have to be, you or me, but it was me because I hadn't have the money. So I got to do something in this deal, right? So I was the manager. And what I realized was the time I put into help acquiring the property, overseeing some of the updates, which took maybe a month or 6 weeks on the side. And then the management with a good property, with some general communication skills and a decent contract or a lease, not a lot of work there. I mean, it's pretty much, a run rate. So when I looked at the time that I put in on acquiring, renovating, and managing that property for 4 years, and what I made on the capital gain, divide that by the hours put into it versus what I made waiting tables. And back then I was probably averaging $15-20 an hour with tips. Not bad 40 years ago. It was at least 10x on the asset.
Yeah.
The time value was at least 10x. And so that's what flipped the switch. Now, unfortunately, I had already dedicated my going to dental school. So here I'm going, dang it. You know what? I got 4 more. I could be out there making money in real estate like nothing, like, because I was going to make another 25,000 that easy. So I just started leveraging more properties while I was in dental practice, right? So I did both tandem. And look, no regrets. The money from the dental practice, was eat money. It also provided me extra money to pay down the debts because I was leveraging everything. I had to leverage because I didn't have extra money other than 25,000. I had to make that go as far as I could, right? Because if I just put that in one property, I mean, I could buy one crappy property for 25,000 versus how could I learn to negotiate and find more properties and parcel that money out? So over 15 years, I acquired about 35 properties. With extra money, I snowballed down the debt. So in 15 years, I had 35 properties, the majority of which were free and clear at that point. So I'll stop there and take a breath because I know I gave you a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
There.
Well, if I can just make an observation that I'd like for y'all listening to just kind of be aware of is what David, there is the similarities that we've had. Like I did the exact same thing. My first house, I talked to my dad and it was only a 2 unit. I ended up not selling. I still have it to this day.
That's great. Yeah. Let me say, if we would have kept that property that we bought for 83.5 and probably put another 5 or 7,000, I don't remember. Let's say our basis was 90,000. Yeah. That house today, that's 40 years. On Zillow, anyway, that house is listed at, what did I see it the other day? 1.1 mil. And the rent, Zillow rent is like 5,000 a month. So anyway, go back. So you kept yours. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So, and what's interesting, guys, and David mentioned this earlier as far as principles in a book that was written by William Nickerson in 1959 about the principles. So what David did and then what I did, there's a term for that now. And I didn't realize that. I've been in real estate now 13 years. And so now we're starting to see a little bit of this too. There's a term called house hacking now. Did you know that, Doctor?
I probably heard it, but I probably don't know the exact specifics of how that works.
So you house hacked and I house hacked.
Yeah.
And that's just an example, guys, of how there's these creative, clever marketers that will like try and sell you that the best thing since sliced bread, like a brand new thing.
Right.
Really, it's just a new marketing term for a principle that's been around for 100+ years.
Yeah.
Right. So, if I can make an observation there just to kind of make sure you guys kind of get that on your radar, I think that's really important. Now, go ahead. So I was checking out this book, guys, and so it's Own Your Freedom. And to kind of continue your story, you were talk to me a little bit on like, so you're doing the dentist thing, and then your daughter's name's Jenna, is that right?
Right.
So can you go into that just a little bit on how like kind of that crisis kind of impacted you and kind of what happened?
Yeah. So Jenna, my only child, when she was age 2.5, she was diagnosed with high risk leukemia, which is a cancer of the white blood cells. And fortunately, it's pediatric wise, it's pretty treatable. And this was, now we're going back almost 30 years. She turned 29 this summer. So I'm kind of telling you the story turned out well, but there was a lot of pieces of that. So she's diagnosed with high risk leukemia. This was 1995. And she got through that. It was brutal. I will just say, anybody who's dealt with cancer in your life or family's life or somebody if you live in it, it's brutal. So I have a lot of empathy for people who are or have dealt with it, because it is life changing. Not always for the worst, I will say. On the other side, many times from adversity, there's things that we learn that actually can improve lives. Unfortunately, not always does cancer end that way. So again, I have a lot of empathy for people who have losses in their lives. Jenna made it through that. My marriage to her mother, wonderful lady, was her advocate, really, who really was there with her all the time, 24/7, saved her life. But the stresses of all that, you just don't know what you don't know. And it was like a no fault thing. It's just like, it's that much stress in a young marriage and with a family and a sick daughter. So we unfortunately couldn't salvage that. But Jenna made it through that. Then she had about 4 years of pretty much unresolved epileptic seizures. I mean, they tried all kinds of medications, and at least once a week, she's, has a day where she's just out. I mean, she goes, and it's just, so that's that. Now her mom's really dealing with that because I'm not in the household at that point. And then a few years later, at age 12, this was in 2004, Jenna starts vomiting blood, congealed blood. I'm sorry, it's not a very, very, very good picture, but onto the floor. So it's like, what now? So they've care flight her to Dallas to the medical center, and 3 days later we get the diagnosis that she's in end stage liver failure. It's like, what next, right? What next? So again, I'll just fast forward. She gets on the transplant list. That's a whole nother, not a nightmare, but there's bureaucracy. You guys, there's a lot of bureaucracy because who gets a liver? Well, it's all based on points, and there's all kinds of things, age and condition of the patient. And so you're playing this whole Russian roulette game. Is like, are we even going to get a chance to? And then the key thing is, like, the day you get a call that maybe there's actually a liver that fits you or your child. It's like, well, if that child's not having a good day, like if they have the sniffles or something, it's like, oh, you're out. So, you can't do surgery with, so it's just all these conditions that you have no control over this stuff. And she got the liver transplant. So I'm just, again, giving you the fast story here. She had the day where she was called, and I'm flying to Houston. This is in Houston now where this is happening, and meeting them there, and 6 hours of surgery. And, the doctor comes out and says, we got it done, and, looking good. And there's still a lot of back end resolution to get done when you have that kind of surgery. It's not, you don't walk out the next week and, happy to have a new liver. There was months in Houston going on. That was the time, though, when I was there, and I had to go back and forth from my practice, over this 3 months. But when I was actually there, when I had time to really reflect on what am I doing here? What's my real purpose here? Now I realized at that point I had been in practice 2004. So right at 20 years, and I built up the real estate, right? So I'd been doing some good things, but my time was pretty much just expended on, on all fronts now. I mean, I'm stretched out, and I'm thinking, how many more chances do I get with my daughter? I can make money. I know how to make money, and I can do that. But when do I have chances to be with my daughter? Maybe I need to make some changes here. So I resolved to sell my dental practice. When she was in the hospital, I said, I just told her mom, I said, I'm selling the dental practice, and because I need more freedom. I need more time. I need time. I need to take the equity that I built up, goodwill in the practice, real estate that I had, but I need to take some of the equity now. I need to turn it back into time, because time's the thing we can't get back. And I think there's a lot of us have this feeling. I know I do, and you guys are type A, and many of the people you work with, type A. We're drivers. Like, we'll do whatever it takes, to make the money we need to secure our family and lifestyle, and then kind of build the moat. And the question becomes like, well, how much is enough? Well, nobody ever knows. It's like, well, I got to this point, and life's pretty decent right now, and the blessings of what I have. But how much is really enough? Because no one really can really define that, right? If you have this much, well, why shouldn't I get this much? Well, if I got that much, why shouldn't I get that much? And I think we tend to do that at the expense of the people that want more of us. So this is my epiphany. So I made that choice to sell the practice, knowing that I had enough of a financial run rate. I wasn't big time wealthy, guys. Trust me. I mean, I knew how to turn money into real estate, into cash flow. I don't do what you guys. I'm not a flipper. I'm not a retailer. I'm not a transactional guy there. So I don't know how to do that game, but I had built up enough of the cash flow, and I knew how to make that work. Right. So I knew that piece of real estate, and I was comfortable with that. So I had enough confidence to sell the practice, take the after-tax equity from that, and put that back into real estate. And I knew I could add all that together. And would that be enough to support my daughter if I didn't go back and work another day doing anything active? That was my, like, that's the worst position I could be in. And so I resolved I had enough. And it's what I put in the book. In what chapter is it? It's chapter 1, your freedom number. So I described that. That's where I came up with the freedom number in the book, is what's that number you need on a passive basis to replace your active income if you weren't to go back and work another day to train time for dollars, right? So that's where that came from. And so now I'm out of the practice, and I can focus on Jenna and I kind of got this void in my life. It's a good thing. It's actually, finally I can sit back and go, I've been doing this, school and practice and real estate. And I've been going hard for well over 20 years. I mean, probably call it 30 years. And now I've got this little bit of time to sit back and kind of evaluate, well, where am I? What's this all about? And what moves could I make from here? Do I need to keep doing what I've been doing, or could I make a change? So I made a conscious decision to make the change. And within a short time, I had some of my colleagues that would reach out who knew I'd sold the practice. And of course, the question, I was in my 40s. The question is, well, we understand why you did it, David, because, your daughter, you care about your daughter and you wanted time with her. But the question they had was like, how did you do that? How could you do that? Because we're thinking we're going to keep doing what we're doing until we're like at least in our 60s, and that's the typical run rate, right? And I told him, I said, well, I've always been investing in real estate. Like I told you guys before I was in dental school. See, most people didn't know that because I didn't expose that to anybody. That was just my own internal thing that I was doing on the side because I could see the relevancy of how that would build up someday to create enough equity and cash flow, which is what I was doing it for. And so they would say, well, could you show me how? People like really intrigued. I said, well, yeah, I could show you how I did it. But I said, now we're going to go back to when I was like, 22 years old and I had more time than money. Said, you're not going to want to do that. That's probably not going to make sense for you. Why don't you just piggyback on some of my deals, right? Private lender. This is really what I'm talking about, right? They like that idea. They could actually go kick some bricks with me. If they want to do that, I'll show them what I'm doing. But basically, they got to be passive investors. And so that model started to build some steam because they would tell their friends, hey, this guy, David Phelps, friend of mine, dentist, he sold his practice, but the way he got to do that is because he was investing in real estate all these years. Wow, you're doing deals with him? Yeah. Well, could we meet him? So now it's starting to build, right? And I'm thinking, well, okay, what do I do with this? Because I didn't have the ability. I didn't have a machine. I didn't have anything like you guys have where I had access and oil wasn't lead generating like you. So I didn't have the scale. And I didn't really want to build the scale of that kind of business. I just got out of the business, right? It's like, I don't want to go back to doing that. So how could I put something together where I could serve the people who were asking me the questions, but I didn't have to do all the boots on the ground work. And this is again, another epiphany. It's in the book. It's about the principle of association. Well, who do you know? If you're trying to solve a problem, maybe for yourself or for other people, and solving more complex problems, I think is the blessing we get to do. How can you collaborate, joint venture, partner, whatever you want to call it, with other people who bring pieces of that puzzle where you don't have to do them all, but you bring your area of expertise and other people, and that learning how to collaborate with people is probably the biggest inflection point, I think, in anybody's life. And I know you guys are doing that. You helping people do that. You do that with what you're doing right now. So that's how Freedom Founders got started, on a very organic basis with no vision of what it would be, but just by helping other people, solving other people's problems, but doing it in a way that still kept my freedom. I had to keep all those lanes clear, because if I got back in the weeds again, I could easily build something that I would regret I built, because I'd get sucked back into the operational side, which I didn't want to do. So that's kind of the essence of how all that came about.
There's a lot there to take in, a lot. And I want to be, first and foremost, thank you for sharing, because I know you were vulnerable. I appreciate that. And that, people connect to that. So it's really important for us to hear the story, because we, like you said on the onset, not everything's all roses, right?
Right.
Our stories are the up and down, and everyone loves a comeback story, or seeing your daughter from 2.5 to now in her 20s, and hopefully it sounds like she's doing great, right?
Much better. Yes, much better. Thank you.
So that's great. And again, thank you for sharing that. So a few things. Purpose. You mentioned purpose. So during this time, I don't want to lose sight of actually what you just said, which is we believe in this. We say the who, not the what, all the time. Kind of a shorter way to say exactly what you just said. So during that time, you were talking about purpose. You say you had a few epiphanies. Just tell me, who was helping you through this, or were you just doing it on your own?
Hey guys, for those of you that are local to St. Louis, I wanted to make sure you knew about an amazing resource that we have to help do some extra deals. You can email our team at deals@3doors.com. And just so you know, we do deals with other investors all the time. Like, it's been hundreds and hundreds over the years, and we've averaged over 100 deals with other investors per year for over the last 5 years. We can straight up buy the deal if if you have a wholesale under contract that you want to sell. If you need funding to finance a flip, or like you're doing a BRRRR strategy, we have funding available for you. If you're trying to wholesale a deal, we're doing JV wholesale deals with other wholesalers that, quite frankly, some of the deals we're putting together for a beginner or an intermediate investor, they'd probably be walking away from, because we have systems and processes and we have buyers in place that are paying top dollar for these properties. So make sure you use this resource. And the best way to get and the easiest way is to just send us an email, deals@3doors.com. All right, back to the episode.
So during that time, you were talking about purpose. You saying you had a few epiphanies. Just tell me, who was helping you through this, or were you just doing it on your own?
Well, early on, I was doing a lot of it my own, and that's the toughest way to go. I think we tend to carry this burden of, we need to be the rugged individualist, the John Wayne type. I can do anything, right? I can take this on. In fact, we feel like we're weak if we ask for help. Then this is typically a male thing. Some females probably have it too, but it's more a guy thing that my wife even still kids me today. It's like, I'm never lost. I'm just experimenting. And, she's like, get the map, not the map, go to Google. No, I got this. I can't get out of the parking lot. Sometimes it's just like ridiculous, right? You guys are laughing because you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, I do.
But yeah, I think what I learned kind of the hard way is being willing to be vulnerable. Now you got to find the right people to do this with, right? Just go up to a stranger, but finding people, having some friends that, they can be business friends, they can be financial friends, or they can just be good people, but they can be, it can be an informal group of, call it like your five. Like who are the people that really know you well, let's put it this way. If you were going to go on a mission trip to Africa, and you need to leave your financial wherewithal with somebody you trust, do you have that person? Do you have two people you could trust to actually turn over your finances, give them a limited power of attorney, something happened to you that they take it? Do you have those people in your life? See, if you don't, then you need to dig a little deeper. Finding those people that when you're going through difficult times, challenges, adversity, you've got to have perspective outside of your own, because when you're in the midst of your own life, it's just like you're in the weeds. It's you're down deep in the forest. You need someone who can look from up here that's more objective, that can show things that we don't see, because we all have blind spots. And so, yes, I started out doing things solo, and then I quickly started building that tribe, that small tribe first of people. Going to mastermind groups like we're a part of, right? So you find great people there. Out of that, you can find maybe a mentor or two that you can talk to on a regular basis. It's really helpful for me to take all my ideas and the challenges and the opportunities, and be able to have to articulate that to somebody else who I have a lot of respect for. Doesn't have an agenda on me. We're not, in partnership. So they can just look from the outside and help me weave my way through and just give me perspective on the options I have. Because many times when we look at challenges or opportunities, we'll see, well, it's either this way or it's this way. It's like binary. It's like, there's just two choices here. It's like, nope. When you see only two choices in your life, you've lost creativity. There's always more than two choices, but many times we only see it. Well, I either can do this, stay the way of course, or I can do this. And I don't know. It's like, nope, there's a lot more in between. And we just need to pull that creativity back up to the surface again. And other people are great at helping us do that.
Well, yeah. And when emotion goes up, intelligence a lot of times can go.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you can tap into a trusted friend like that, whose emotions aren't up and then fight or flight, like maybe sometimes we all get in our life, depending on what's going on. It could be a simple, easy solution that you're like, man, I should have thought of it, that you just didn't, because you're just trying to survive, at times, right?
Yes.
I love that. So, the book, you wrote this with Dan Kennedy. So has he been kind of one of those individuals for you over your life, like kind of like a mentor, or what's your relationship with Dan?
yeah, so that's kind of a story in itself. But I found Dan, gosh, it's probably been 15, 16 years ago. Again, through books. I guess that kind of shows my appetite for books. I love books. I love to read. I got a few behind me here. That's a small percentage. The rest of them are just piled up on the floor everywhere. It's just like I'm sure you guys understand that, like the piles, right?
Yeah,
I'll get to that one next week, and that one is like.
So we see the nice orderly behind you.
Yeah. I'm
I'm
only showing you a piece. I'm not going to give you a tour.
Yeah.
So my
You see the world.
my
You see the
wife,
world.
literally a week ago, my wife was like, Jim, you're not allowed to buy a book. You've bought like 10 in the last 2 weeks. Like read them and then you can buy another one. But like,
Right. Yeah. Show me you actually consume something here. Right. It's like, no, there's this feeling if you just buy it that you actually already consumed it. Amazon makes it so darn easy. Click it. I've already got that information. Whew, I feel so powerful now. You're like the book hadn't even arrived yet. It's like, yeah, that's a whole other story, Amazon. But anyway, you're asking me down Dan Kennedy. So yeah, so I read one of his books back in the day, and it just really resonated with me. I mean, it's like Dan's talking to me. I mean, he's talking about the small business solopreneur, entrepreneur, and just talking about, and I thought, this guy, he gets it. He gets me. And he's also, showing pathways to get from where you are to where you want to go. Right. And so the message resonated. And so I got more of his books. And then eventually I go to one of his larger conferences. Back in the day, they did every 6 months they would do one in a major. So I went to one of those eventually. It's just kind of the ascension model, right? I mean, you find somebody that they're speaking a truth to you and go, I like this. So you start going, well, how can I get a little bit closer to that? Right? There's something there I like. And so I went to a conference, and then from there, that's where I first learned about, mastermind groups. Well, if you want to take another step, a great way to do it is you find a tribe of people who are like-minded, facilitated by somebody who's very good facilitator. I mean, these are some key components. But so you're investing in yourself. So I said, okay, I'm going to take that next step. I'll invest in, the next level up, which is a mastermind group. And I go, this is very cool. I mean, first time I've been in that kind of environment, and going, wow, the feedback I'm getting, the clarity I'm getting on something, it's like, that was amazing. So I'm doing that. And then one day I was at one of those conferences, and Dan Kennedy's kind of hard to approach. If you don't, it's like I caught him in a hallway, and just kind of an opportune time, and I just went up to him and I just introduced myself, and I said, I'd love to be in your mastermind, because I was, you can't just go to Dan's mastermind back in the day. I mean, he had the highest level, and you have to be doing business and a certain run rate. He's got qualifying criteria because he wants that group to be of that level, and that makes sense, right? So I asked him, I said, I'd love to be in your group. And he was very kind. He said, well, what are you doing? Right. Who are you working with right now? And I said, I'm in this mastermind. And this, he goes, you know what, just keep doing what you're doing. He said, there'll be a time. Well, I didn't like that answer, but I accepted it. Right. What did I do? So I would say it was probably 4 years later. Then I made an application to his mastermind, and I was accepted in. So that's where I got to get closer to Dan. So that was probably 5+ years ago. So I got in his mastermind group, and then from there, he'll offer the opportunity to be a private client. He has a very small private client base. But again, what I'm showing is I'm at the right time. I'm making investments in myself at the level that I could participate, at the level that made sense on my return on that investment. But since then, I've made significant investments in myself. I do every year. I mean, you have to walk the talk. If I'm going to lead other people, I've got to show that I'm also on my own frontier. I have to continue to evolve if I'm going to help other people. I can't stay static and say, well, look at me, I did this. Nope, not good enough. You've got to show that you're always on a journey. So working with Dan as a private client over the last several years, I got to know him very well, and vice versa, because I'm on regular calls with him. That's about as close as you can get. Spent time in his house. And because I got to know him and vice versa, and I got to know him really as a real person, which is really the fun part, because the outside persona, professor of harsh reality, yes, he is that, but he's got a soft underside, and and people don't see that. People don't know that. So I got to see that. But I through the books and through the years and spending time with him, I got to really know Dan as the person and what his real beliefs are. And last year, we were 4 or 5 months into COVID, started about March, right? And so about August, and of course the country and the lockdowns and all the money being shoved out to try to keep things afloat, and people are just in all kinds of disarray. I mean, everybody had to go through some major major iterations in their business, their model, their employment status. I mean, it was right. We're still dealing with it today, and I just started thinking about freedom. And I won't get political here, but a lot of this stuff is restricting freedom today. Big government. Let's just say it this way: big government, big bureaucracy. The government is here. We'll save the day. That's not a good model. That's socialism. And so I thought Dan's all about personal autonomy. I thought I want to write a book about this, but I'd love to do it with Dan, because I mean that to me would like be a benchmark for me to do it with somebody I respect. And so I had to ask him. Dan actually had a serious illness about a little over 2 years ago. Almost died. He almost died. So this is coming back a year later. I know he was being very discerning about where he's putting his time, because he's still coming back from a very serious illness. He had a blood infection. And so I said, would you be willing to do a project? And of course, he's knowing Dan, it's like, well, he's not going to say yes to anything. He's got like, what is this? It's got to mean something to him. He's not about just money. He's like, it's got to be important. And so when I laid it out, he goes, yeah, that's perfect. So we collaborated on this book, worked on it together for the better part of 8 months, and came out, as you guys know, a month ago, actually, the published edition of the book. So that's how I got to know Dan. That's how we did this book together. And I'm proud of the book, because we talked about principles a little while ago. Going back to that first book I showed you from William Nickerson, Own Your Freedom is a book of principles. We don't get into the weeds of tactics. Tactics are appropriate once you've gone through principles to strategy and then to tactics, which is another chapter in the book. People many times just jump at tactics. Well, there's a bright, shiny object. I'll go grab that thing and I'll go do that, and that'll fix this. And it's like, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, because if you haven't really looked at the principles of why are you doing this, where you're trying to go with this, and that's where we have to start. So Own Your Freedom is really about people creating and maintaining their own personal autonomy. And then from there, they can influence and help other people with theirs. It's the ripple effect, right? That's what I thought I could best do in this environment we're in today. I have no say so over who runs the administration or who the Fed chairman is. I got no say over that. But how can I help other people maintain their freedom? Because we have enough people that are doing that, then I think this country can, somehow navigate through these uncharted waters that we're in today.
So you talk about principles, you talk about, asking that right question of, how can you help other people so that they can maintain their freedom? So if you wouldn't mind, I don't want you to get too much in the book, because we certainly want people to read it on their own, but give us a couple of principles of Dr. David Phelps that you found that have helped you get to where you are. And by the way, you mentioned it with Dan too. Dan doesn't just say yes to anything, because right. As we know, the people who have the most success, they ask themselves these types of questions in order to say yes to things, right? They exactly. Go back to their own principles. So what do you live by? What are your principles?
Yeah, well, in the book, the chapters that I wrote, and I'll give you a couple of Dan's as well, because he added a considerable amount to the book. We independently wrote our chapters just so people know, but we outlined together, so we know there'd be correlation. But you'll hear a different voice. You'll hear my voice, and you'll read Dan's. Or actually, we have it on Audible. We each read our portions of the book, which I think was kind of cool too. So if you're an Audible listener, that's fun to do.
Are you my principles 2.5 or you 1.5?
What's that? Say it again.
Your listening speed.
Are you 1.25 or 1.5?
Well, you can put it at whatever speed you want to. I go kind of fast usually, so people might want to keep it at regular speed. But
there you go.
Whatever your brain can take in. I mean, you can run it. That's you can do it at whatever speed you want to. But my main principles were, as I said, the freedom number. Which was what I figured out some 15, 16, 17 years ago, what that meant and how that would give a level of freedom. So we touched on that, but I think people doing a deep dive on that will give them, again, a baseline, a milestone to reach for, instead of, just trying to pile up money or pile up so many houses. You need to have some number. Now, what you do beyond that, perfectly fine. But if you never know how much is enough of anything, then you're never going to quit. And I don't mean you need to quit. I'm not saying you should ever quit doing what you love, doing things on your terms. See, that's what a freedom number gives you. It gives you a definition and then the ability to stop sacrifice. There's always a sacrifice period. Unless you're a trust fund baby, there's a sacrifice period. But how quickly can you move from sacrifice to living on your terms and still being relevant, still being productive, still building equity, business, whatever you want to do? But now you've got a baseline. You've got a safety net. And most people never think they have a safety net because they don't know what that number looks like. Yeah. So that's freedom number. I mentioned the other principles were the principle of power of association. We talked about that already. Groups, people, your five. Jim Rohn talks about you're the average of the five people you spend the most time with. I think that's a key. That's a key relationship capital. If you haven't gone down the road with that, focus there, because I think people in proper relationships, well structured, well-meaning, are some of the highest leverage points we have in life. All the technical stuff, it can be here or there. Another principle was what I talked about too a little bit. Wealth is what you own, not what you do. So again, I figured that out very early when I realized that first asset that my dad and I purchased, right, is that wealth was way greater in leverage than the trading time for dollars as I did as a restaurant waiter. So I figured that one out very early on. And and that's why I kept buying real estate, because I thought there's something to this. I had to see it play out, but I realized that. We talked about principles before strategies, before tactics. I do a whole chapter in the book about that, so people can get a better idea of how to use principles as filters before they start taking action in a particular direction. If you use those filters in your life, it'll help you say yes or no, or do this versus that, rather than just grabbing at whatever is out there today, because that will dilute your power if you're just grabbing at different things and without a real focused direction. And then my fifth principle is about transferable skill sets. So my point there is it's no problem to go through school and formal training of any kind, whether it's vocational, academic. Mine was dentistry, so very specialized skill set. And yes, in the right environment, that skill set, trading time for dollars, provides income. But the problem with specialized skill sets is, are they transferable? Being a dentist is not particularly transferable to other things. I mean, you either know how to work on teeth in the mouth, but if you don't have mouths to work on, or the industry changes, like, well, where else do I go? Real estate, getting involved in real estate early as I did, taught me all kinds of things. It taught me about, gave me financial acumen. But I didn't take any classes at school for that. Of course, I was going to be a dentist. I don't need to know about finance or economics. Oh my gosh, the world of finance just opened doors for me. And I learned that because of real estate. Learning about how to negotiate, contracts, business law, communication skills, marketing, messaging, just all these other skill sets that I never learned or never would have learned in academic school, right? Education. So that's important. Dan talks about the evolution of a free person. His book, talking about a little bit what I just described is starting out with a skill set. And you're the doer, right? You're the doer. It's kind of like Michael Gerber, the E-Myth. Okay, I'm a doer. I've got the skill set, and maybe I can enhance that skill set a little bit. But the involvement of my wealth or income is going to be very linear, tied to the actual time I put into it. Well, that's not the way you want to live your life. You want to leverage your time value into other aspects that will increase either your wealth or your time, or both, because that's what we're after. I mean, really, what's net worth and wealth all about? It's about turning it back into time. It's what I did when my daughter was sick. I took that I built and turned it back into time again, because we can't buy back the time. Once the time's gone, it's gone. So Dan shows the evolution of a free person all the way from technician to what he says is the top of the scale, which I agree is investor. It's investor. When you're investing, wow, you can do all those things along the line. You don't have to quit, but that evolution. He talks about that. He talks about who's driving your car, meaning who's really focusing on your future. I mean, are you abdicating your finances to other people, to Wall Street, to money managers, or are you having some level of orchestrating your financial future? You don't have to be a specialist in that area, but you need to know enough to drive your own car so that you utilize the people, other expertise, but you're the orchestrator. You're not abdicating that to somebody else. Those are some of there's other ones in there, but those are some of the key principles in the book that I think people will find most interesting.
So David, if we can kind of turn the focus a little bit from the book to some of the journeys that you've helped people with over the last 10 plus years to get to financial freedom. What's some of the tools and the tips and the tricks that you've learned helping as many people as you have? Like, you know, what are some of the processes you have people go through?
Yeah, I think a big one, I know you guys would agree to this, because it's the same for all of us, is it's mindset, it's thinking, it's self-limiting beliefs. When any one of us, and again, I'm talking to the audience here, everybody listening, you've gone through something. You've gone through something in your life, an experience that's taught you some lessons. Taught you lessons or expanded your horizons. You've been able to get through things you never thought you could get through. We've got to change the mindset and thinking of people who, for no fault of anybody's, but you know, a lot of the thinking that we grow up with comes from school, it comes from parents, it comes from grandparents. It's stuff that's been passed down. Much of the stuff that's passed down and taught, unfortunately, is very limiting, and it's really not truth. Not pushing back on anybody. I mean, we all do the best we can, right? So you've got to break through and see the possibility of not following the majority. The majority says this is what you do in life, and you do this for this many years, and then you retire. And it's like, oh, come on. I mean, how boring is that? So most people think they're just stuck in whatever. No, you're not. You're not stuck. You're only stuck because you're stuck here. So when you change this between your ears, and you've really got, again, that comes back to the power of association, or what you take in, what you read. I mean, if you're watching the news every night, I mean, the world's, you know, looks like it just sucks, right? And it's like you're going, oh, I can't do anything with this. I can't do anything about politics and the markets. No, you can't do that with that. But what you do is you can deal right here. So see, we all have our own personal economy. You guys know that. I mean, personal economy is what you're doing with your life. Disregard what everybody else is saying or doing. So mindset's a key thing. Helping other people, so telling your story. I mean, authentic stories, not just how great you are. But you have to tell the stories of the trials and tribulations. That's what people connect with. So if you've got something that's powerful, and then not trying to do it by yourself, because I'm just a facilitator of our group. It's a community, it's a tribe, it's people helping people. I'm just happen to be fortunate to be the leader of it, but it's not all about me. It's the conglomerate of all of the wisdom in the room. And so when you bring together any size group, whether it's 2 or 3 people or 12 people or whatever size you're doing, but you've got to be a good leader who inspires other people into action, giving them resources and tools, helping them with a mindset and some level of accountability. What I found is, which is very true for everybody, it doesn't matter what your industry is, what your career path is, what your job is today. That takes the most amount of your time, but you've got to be thinking outside that. You know, how do I take the next steps to the next level I want to get to? And so making people show up, I say make them, hold them accountable to show up in some kind of form or fashion. And we do it virtually each week, where there's meetings on Zoom, small group meetings, right? Where it just makes you think, even if you haven't even taken specific action that week, you step back up to like, what were my goals at the last meeting? What were my goals? Where am I? Okay, I sloughed off because something happened. Okay, it happens to everybody, but now you get back on track. If you don't have those regular points in time regularly where you're getting back on track, at least your mind's getting back on track, then things can fall off and then people just never get back on the train again. So
I feel like I need to interject something here. I don't know how well you knew Chuck Bauman. So he's a person in our mastermind, was one of the leaders of the mastermind group we're in, and he passed away yesterday. And I had a chance to watch the same presentation 2 or 3 times. It was so good. I was glued to my seat, like listening to him talk about it. And he had a phrase that he would say over and over again. He says, belief changes everything. Belief changes everything.
Yes.
And then he'd go through this whole exercise, and I'm not doing him any sort of justice with this because I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but he would call out the audience. He'd ask the audience, hey, do you know how to lose weight? Or like, who's trying to lose weight?
Right.
And everybody,
like, right?
And he's like, do you know how to lose weight? And I bet you do. And he would, kind of call them like idiots almost, the audience, and everyone would laugh. There was this whole production that he would do with it. But his point was like, literally every single person knows how to lose weight. It's not about the tactics. Like if you eat better and you work out more, you're going to lose some weight. big
secret, right? Big secret.
But if you don't believe that you can lose weight, like you're not going to take the actions and the steps to do it.
Yeah.
So
The
anyway,
earth lost a great one and heaven gained a great one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Chuck, so dynamic. And just think about all the lives that he's changed. I mean, that's legacy, right? I mean, the transformation, the change in other people's lives, whether it was just a sentence he said to somebody, or how he treated somebody one day, or being a part of the tribe and the mastermind, irrespective of any of those, Chuck changed lives. And that goes back to purpose and meaning. And, when you get to the point in life where you just enjoy sharing with other people and where you can contribute something of value to their lives. I mean, that's what gives us, purpose and meaning. I think that's the top shelf, and Chuck went out on top, no question about it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So, it's a little bit of a topic switch. We're getting kind of short on time, but I noticed that you had an inflation webinar on your website. I was kind of doing a little homework just to prepare, and so it feels like you studied a lot, and you studied decades of inflation back when inflation was rampant. Can you give us just a quick little couple minutes summary of it, and then we can kind of give everybody the resource that if anybody wants to learn more about that and the inflation that they can go to?
Yeah, well, we haven't seen any significant inflation until just recently, since COVID and all the federal spending of money, the debt, which is driving that. Last time this country experienced it was back in the late 60s and 70s, up until about 82. We were talking about that earlier today. And so inflation is another tax. It's another erosion of wealth. It's one that you don't write a check for. And so since it really hasn't, we always have some level of inflation. And whatever the government figures are, the CPI, the core index, realize, folks, that they manipulate that. So even though they said in October, year over year, it was 6.2%, which that's a big jump from what we've had over 40 years. That number is actually higher than that. It's always higher. It's probably twice that. But irregardless, inflation is something I believe that we are past the point of what they call transitory. There was talk about, well, it's short term. It's because of COVID and supply chain issues. And yeah, all those are factors in it, no question. But I believe that what since studying history and economics and looking back what we saw back in the 70s, I think we're on this train where we're going to have significant inflation ahead. There's still going to be market cycles. It doesn't mean just the markets are just going to go like this. I think we have asset bubbles that we'll see corrections in stock market. I think we'll see some corrections in real estate. But the long haul is we've got inflation. So where people haven't really had to worry about that significantly in the last 40 years, the model for creating and maintaining, particularly maintaining wealth or principal or buying power of your dollars, is going to be a critical factor that people haven't looked at. Of course, that's what's one of the benefits of real estate. It's why we love real estate, because real estate historically has that index to inflation on both the cash flows that real estate can produce upon good management, but also the valuation. So it fits well with our models. A lot of people, though, that have other models of retirement planning and investment models probably haven't looked at that, or this is going to be brand new to them and probably brand new to a lot of their advisors. There's a saying that every time we go through some generational cycles, the people that are at the forefront, kind of the leaders, whether that's politics or in finances, they haven't seen the old cycles. It's like brand new territory because people just age out. The people that really understand what's going on are typically today, probably at least in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. They'd be the ones that could look back in history and go, oh, this is what you do. But it's like they're not leading the fray. So now people are hearing from people who don't a lot of times have a clue. I'm not bashing anybody here, but what's their history? What do they really know? So again, that's where it comes back to. I think you got to orchestrate and lead your own future. But yeah, I think inflation is going to be a big factor, as will be taxation. And the people focus a lot on taxation. As I said, inflation is just a hidden tax. So understand you've got to look at both the actual obvious taxation that you're going to be involved in going forward, but also inflation as another piece of that.
Gotcha. So Dr. Phelps has what was your website, your URL?
It's freedomfounders.com.
freedomfounders.com. So like, yeah, you researched it and have a whole webinar around inflation. So if you're wanting to kind of understand the dynamics of how that can impact your investments, that'd be a really important one to check out.
So we're really early on in our journey with regards to our newish, I should say. It's about a year old, 10-year target. Our 10-year target's to help 250 people become financially free. So that's one of our shared goals, right? You've already been doing it. So we don't have much time left. How many people, I want you to brag a little bit. How many people have you helped become financially free?
I don't have the specific number, but I would say it's definitely in the hundreds at this point. Been doing this for a number of years. It's definitely in the hundreds, and I think the financial freedom is that's the base. I mean, that once you get there, then all the other freedoms open up, and I think what we get to see is really the transformation in people's lives from a scarcity mindset, stress, anxiety, angst, uncertainty. To where the expression on people's faces, it changes. Now, they may not even be quote, financially free yet, but when they see the progress and see what that means and how they're going to get there, that changes people's lives right there. So the pathway and then getting people to financial freedom, I think it's a great goal. And that's why I love what you're doing, because as I said earlier, if we're going to maintain freedom and autonomy, which is what this country was built on, we've got to have enough people that are actually living that. Otherwise, if too many people aren't, they're going to throw their arms up and go, government, come save me. And that's what the government wants. So we have got to help as many people as we can to see, nope, there's a better way. And unfortunately, the school system, government education, I should call it, is not helping that at all. So I could go on a long time there, but I'll just cut that one off right there.
Yeah, I have issues with it too. So the school calls it cheating. The business world calls it collaboration.
Exactly.
I collaborate a lot in school.
Yeah.
Jim, I want to praise Jim here too, and you've said it. And we share this, but Jim said it at our retreat about, we had it 2-3 weeks ago. He said, there's no better gift than we can do, which is why we have that target of 250 people. We can give no better gift in this world than to teach people to become financially free. Because then whatever they want to do with their time is their choice, not dictated by our 9 to 5.
Yeah. And I mean, a charity that opens up, that teaches a underprivileged kid that becomes the next president, or, the ripple effect of what, so we've really rallied behind it, and it's a big part of our why. And we're at a point now, being 13 years in, we already have our portfolio built. You know what I mean? I get that we're younger, but we're in our 30s here, but so it's really been pulling and motivating us to what legacy can we live? How can we help people out? And so when I kind of meet somebody like you, Dr. Phelps, it's really, or that's already been doing it, super already fan. Been down the, super fan. Yeah. It's already been down the path.
You got a super fan.
It's neat. It's neat to have that in common. You know what I mean?
It's awesome. And you've done it already. So, truly, jokes aside, we are aspiring to do what you did. So we have all the admiration for you in the world, because you're doing a phenomenal thing.
Well, you guys are tracking very well with it. And when you share with other people, it just takes the principles that you've learned, experienced in your life, and just solidifies those, right? And so I love sharing with other people, because it just makes me better at what I do. If I have to be real enough to actually help people do something similar or gain the goals that they want to. It's what gets us up every day, right? That's truly what gets us up. It's not just adding another 5 houses to the portfolio. It's like, what are we really doing with this? That's why I had to come back to my why. It's like, why am I, when my daughter was sick, why am I doing all this if I'm just not spending time with my daughter? Wait a minute, let's refigure this out. How can I still do both, right?
Yeah. No. Do you I don't have anything else. It's been awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you kind of pouring into the podcast and the audience. And just guys, Dr. Phelps has some amazing stuff. So check out his book, Own Your Freedom. That's on, I guess, on Audible, it sounds like, and just
on Audible, Kindle. Yep.
I get on Kindle, you name it. And then also freedomfounders.com, a tremendous amount of good content there as well. So definitely check them out. And Just thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you.
Jim, Ryan, thank you. It's a pleasure. I had fun with the conversation today.
All right, guys. So that's a wrap on today's episode. Just a reminder, it can be found on doorstodeals.com/071 if you're looking for the show notes and all the other additional resources that we have available. And don't forget, if our main goal is to help 250 people become financially free. If you're looking for passive income opportunities, we generate about $130,000 a month in those opportunities currently, and we are looking to grow that number. And so all you have to do is just send us over an email, deals@3doors.com, for more information on that and what all we have available for you there. So go out, live your purpose, and above all else, go after your dreams. Till next time. Thanks for tuning into this show. For more episodes and resources that will unlock Doors to Deals, check out our website, doorstodeals.com.